From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm Jhoan Stolnis from The Good Phight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Jhoan Stolnis. Coming up, taking a look at some projections here for the Phillies and the National League East as we get ready for spring training coming up in just a few weeks. How do the projections see the NL East shaking out with all the moves that the Mets have made and better health for the Braves and the Phillies stagnant offseason, I guess is kind of the word I would use to describe it. We'll also do some Phillies over-unders based on some of the projections. And of course, we'll run down some of the latest news from around Major League Baseball in terms of signings, some things that Phillies fans, guys we've been talking about during the course of the offseason, they're starting to come off the board as it looks like the Phillies are done anyway, but still some interesting things happening there. So we'll get to all of that here on this edition of Hittin Season. I'm joined by Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus, author of the forthcoming book, Summer of the Cheap Wieners. You can buy that in all your local bookstores and Brookline and all that stuff. So Justin will talk about that more in just a couple of minutes, but you can follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh. Justin, buddy, it's February, which means, we got a couple of weeks till the all ball throwers get down to Clearwater.
10 days, isn't it, till pitchers and catchers report, and we all have different definitions of when the beginning of this starts, restarts and everything. But again, here we are, 10 days out, and it just feels like the cycle of sports and the sports calendar just never ceases. It is it's haunting to be back at this position again. The early February doldrums where everything's just soggy and gross and there's just dirty snow everywhere and everyone's like, well, baseball will be here soon. And you're like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, but it's our baseball team. So, but no, I think we've been talking about this a lot. As once pitchers and catchers show up, and the gloves, the mitts start popping, and you hear the optimistic Zach Wheeler reports, and Aaron Nola's got life on his fastball again, and, Bryce Harper is hitting moonshots, working with Kevin Long in batting practice. We're all going to get giddy again. We're all going to feel that. We're all going to feel that sense of excitement, and that's just around the corner, folks. After a disappointing offseason, the excitement of real baseball players playing real baseball is not that far off. I did want to start off talking about some of the projections. It's projection season right now, as a lot of these computer models are starting to, we have some more fully formed rosters, even though there are some big name free agents who are still out there, and some deals that went down here over the last couple of days have thinned that number a little bit, but the rosters are starting to get a little bit more complete. And so it's a good time to take a look at what the projection systems out there are saying. And one of the ones that we like to look at is Dan Szymborski's Zips projections. You can find those over on Fangraphs. Dan, of course, if you've been a listener of this podcast for any length of time, Dan's a frequent guest on the podcast, so we call him a podcast pal to be sure. He has, according to the Zips projections, these computer models have the Atlanta Braves, Justin, winning the National League East at 91.6 wins. They give the Braves a 47.6% odds to win the division. The Mets are in second place, 89.6 wins. They have a 33.1% chance of winning the division. And of course, your Philadelphia Phillies, 86.8 wins, 18.5% odds to win the National League East. So no surprise, I guess, to see the Phillies in third place. And these wins projections, they always come in a little bit lower. There's not a lot of, 100-win projections. There's also not a lot of bottom-feeding win projections. They all kind of stay pretty close from the upper 60s to the mid 90s for the upper reaching teams, but it's really just kind of like low 90s to upper 60s. And so you don't see those wide gaps. Like you won't see Zips project the Braves to finish 12 games better than another team. That's just not how it works. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think right now with things kind of having settled in after a somewhat spastic winter as far as news came and went, this is a pretty healthy place to land. I think this is a realistic place to land. I don't think it's set in stone, but I feel like it's completely it's fair. I'm trying to think of what these teams look like lately. The exercise I've been trying to do is what do these three teams look like if everything is working for all of them? Like if there are no unfortunate injuries or downslides or failures to come back or bounce back from a rough year last year. And the Phillies, it's a tough argument to make because you automatically think of the Phillies like playing as their kind of bummed out versions last year with Bryce Harper and everything. But imagining like a Bryce Harper hitting the way like his ceiling is, even a lower ceiling than like his earlier days in Washington MVP days, like or closer to just like his MVP. I'd settle for his Phillies MVP days.
Yeah.
Playing at that level with Kyle Schwarber, like playing at the level he's able to play. I mean, they're kind of like it's much more evenly matched. But that's the issue. All these teams are trying to correct or trying to fight that element that derailed them in the past, which is kind of like a total X factor, which is like injuries, which is bad luck, which is just like an in-season collapse. And that's ultimately what's going to be the differentiator here is like which team has prepared best for the issues they can't escape. And I don't think anybody in Philadelphia would say that they feel like the Phillies have truly prepared to avoid the same kind of fate they've had the past 4 years. So I think it's easy to put the Braves on top because you think of how deep that team is and how all they have to overcome is the fact that they were all injured last year. And I think that's a steeper climb than probably people think, but it's still kind of like probably the easiest time that any of these three teams has to like getting to the ceiling they need to play at. With the Mets, it's all these acquisitions they made. It's you can look at them individually and see how like, yeah, these are some big moves, but also bounce back candidates in disguise. And you're still wondering where they're thin because they still could be thin in some places. And with the Phillies, it's largely the same thing. So I think if you're looking at them objectively right now and what's on paper and what each team has to overcome, I think it's completely fair to put them in the order they put them in. But I think you can take these facts and frame them how you want and probably come up with a different order that's might even be dramatically different.
Yeah, I mean, I can see really I think what the Zips projections are showing us here is that this is kind of a division that's up for grabs. I mean, these numbers are pretty close. The Mets and Braves, there's 2 wins separating them. There's about 3 wins separating the Mets and the Phillies and 5 wins between the Braves and the Phillies. This could very easily shake out exactly the way the Zips projections are saying.
Like, I know what I'm afraid of being problems for the Phillies, but like, will those be problems? Like, what is the likelihood of the starting pitching being as big an issue as I think it's going to be? I don't know, but are the Phillies as worried about that? They haven't really gone out and made it look like they are. So that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're kind of looking at the depth chart, I mean, we haven't talked a lot about the Braves because the Braves have been pretty quiet. We've talked a lot about the Mets because the Mets have been really busy. But you look at what the Braves starting rotation looks like. I mean, you figure if Spencer Strider is nobody talks about Spencer Strider anymore. I mean, he was the guy at the end of the 2023 season, and then injuries the last couple of years have really derailed things for him. But if he's healthy, he's still a young starting pitcher who can put up the same kinds of numbers that Paul Skeens and Zach Wheeler and all those other guys can put up in the National League. And so you have your right-handed ace there. I don't know how much longer Chris Sale can keep doing what he's doing, but Chris Sale continues to be a really effective starting pitcher when he's healthy.
Until
and then
proven otherwise.
What's that?
Until proven otherwise.
Yeah, until proven otherwise, right? And then Spencer Schwellenbach, I mean, he was really effective a couple of years ago. Reynaldo Lopez, he was signed to make an impact, and he was hurt for most of last year. And then, you've got some of these other guys, A.J. Smith-Shawver. You've got a Joey Wentz, who they like a lot. Bryce Elder, I'm not a big fan of, but, they got some pieces there. They got a bullpen that, you think is going to be a little bit better. You just kind of wonder, how much does Matt Olson have left? How much does Austin Riley have left? Austin Riley is still pretty young, but he's been around. He's gotten hurt a lot these last few years. I mean, you're looking at an outfit. The Braves are a little bit all over the place still, I think. But they definitely are dangerous. I mean, Olson, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Ha-Seong Kim. We'll see if he's able to get back at any point and play shortstop. That's a big loss for them to start off the season. Your outfield is Mike Yastrzemski, Michael Harris II, Acuna Jr. Acuna's a big question mark. Can he stay healthy? And if he plays at an MVP level, I mean, that's really kind of the difference in this. I think that's the difference between these 3 teams. If you've got Acuna at the top of his game, and you've got he's their best player. Juan Soto is the Mets' best player, and then who's the Phillies' best player? Is it Bryce? Is it Kyle? And are they as good as either one of those other 2 guys? I mean, that's a big question. I think really that's going to determine maybe who wins the division.
Yeah, the Braves, they added to the back of their bullpen, too, with Iglesias and Robert Suarez. So, like, they fortified that aspect as well. They strengthened their bench. And I don't know, part of me feels like, going back to that idea of all 3 of these teams playing at 100%, the Braves have I don't know, maybe the highest ceiling
Yeah.
potentially. However,
Yeah.
to your point, about guys like Matt Olson and Austin Riley. I mean, it wasn't just that the Braves were all injured last year. They also got some pretty underwhelming performances from some guys who have been huge strengths for them in the past. And obviously, Acuna was a little bit of both for that. He missed a lot of time, but also when he was on the field, he was not as able to make as big an impact as he has in the past. And him being able to stay on the field and stay healthy is he's gonna be what makes the Braves different. Him playing at the level he can play at. They just really need that star power pack. But their big hiring this offseason was Walt Weiss, and I kind of talked about him, their Braves' new manager, earlier in the offseason. So I'll just say again, that it's a big thing for this to be like a new manager's first year for the Braves. However, he's a guy all the players know and like. He's been with the organization far before now. And he's said to have a better relationship with Ronald Acuna than Brian Snitker even did, his predecessors for the Braves. So he's here to let this team do its thing. But Atlanta is very much like the Phillies in the we should be good, but let's just see what we're dealing with kind of category. I think they're a little less concerned, and I think the swing from like success to failure, the scope of that is probably a little shorter for the Braves. But it is a similar situation. And to your point, people also need to remember, including me, that we've been patting the Braves on the back for locking all these players up for these long-term deals. They're also going to age in the same way we fear the Phillies players aging as well. They're also going to age and decline and become less reliable and scary as time goes on. So
That's already happened.
And that is something you're starting to see happen and will only continue to happen for Atlanta as well as for the Phillies.
Right. They've lost 2 seasons, essentially, because of injuries. These last 2 seasons in 24 and 25, where they really should have continued to be playing at such a high level because of the injuries, and they're locked into a lot of these guys. That's why you haven't seen the Braves do much during these off seasons, because most of their positions are already set. With regard to the Mets, I was thinking about this question, and I think I know how I would answer it, but I want to ask you this question first. If you could just swap rosters with the New York Mets, between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Mets, would you swap rosters? Would you swap rosters if you could with the Mets?
That's such a tough question because you're asking me to first of all put aside the Metsness of the Mets and just look at this from a pure objective player standpoint.
And just so people listening, and to give you a second to think about this, the Mets starting rotation right now: Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Kodai Senga, with Clay Holmes in the mix there as well. Relief pitcher, their closer is Luke Weaver, with AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, Huascar Brazoban, and Dylan Ross as your... Oh, no, Devin Williams is the closer.
I was going to say, you said Devin Williams, right?
Devin Williams is the closer. Luke Weaver, Minter, Raley, Brazoban, and Ross are the other 5 relievers there.
They got Craig Kimbrell coming to camp.
Yeah, I saw that. What are you guys doing? I mean, it's not even a dart throw.
Hey, have fun.
Yeah. Francisco Alvarez is going to start the season probably on the injured list, but he's their starting catcher. Mark Vientos is going to be their first baseman. Oh, no, Jorge Polanco is going to be their first baseman. Sorry. The ESPN depth chart is weird. They have it a little bit messed up, but it's going to be Jorge Polanco starting at first. Marcus Semien is their second baseman. Brett Beatty is going to be their third baseman. Francisco Lindor is their shortstop. And then you're going to have Carson Bengi, is going to be their left fielder. Tyrone Taylor looks like he's going to be the guy in center, and Juan Soto is going to be in right. And then you're going to have Mark Vientos most likely as your designated hitter.
I don't feel. I'm just going to answer. I don't feel like a driving need to say yes to this.
Me either.
And it's a little more annoying of a question because you're not saying like would you like swap like position by position? No, we're saying roster. Would you just take their roster? As in, like, do you just feel like they have a better group of players in general than the Phillies do? And for me, with the Mets, it really comes down to more like what the Mets are planning to do with these players that might be their undoing. I mean, in general, if you would rather have these players than the Phillies players, well, a lot of these guys, and this is something that won't be an issue for them in 2026, but who knows what the future holds, like took shorter term deals because they're not interested in necessarily getting locked in somewhere. Like clearly we learned that the hard way.
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't mention Bo Bichette in there. I don't know why he's not listed on the ESPN 2026 depth chart. I just glossed over it. Bo Bichette will be playing third base, not Brett Beatty. My apologies. Okay, to everyone screaming at their phone or listening in their car right now, what about Bo Bichette, you moron?
I've got I've got Bichette's name written in like 3 different notes right in front of me. I was hearing his name in my head whether it was being said or not. I was like, Bichette. It's Bichette because it's Bichette and then Bichette. Anyway, yes, obviously Bo Bichette's a big part of that too. But again, that he factors into my response here as well. So in addition to players being more interested in the Mets are being set in the short term, which is like very good, but also roster wise, it's going to lead to more questions sooner at the very least. So I like that they, these big moves, they made big moves to get good players. They deepened their lineup. They have probably the deepest lineup of the teams we're talking about. They got better as a team, but you look a little bit into this and, that rotation could be an asset. Could be totally thin. Freddie Peralta is well known as a 5-inning guy as a starter. You don't know what you're going to get from Kodai Senga this year and how healthy he's going to be able to stay. And they're relying on some, albeit elite level, but rookie talent pitching. So that's just come out of their farm system to also fill in the gaps. I feel like their focus definitely tilted more towards the lineup this time. And if you're saying you're focusing on defense, which David Stern said they were doing when they traded for Marcus Semien in the Brandon Nimmo trade, and then you bring in Bo Bichette to play a position he's never played before, and then you bring in Jorge Polanco to play a position he's barely played before, I don't know. I mean, did the plan just change, or do we have different definitions of defense, or is the belief just so much that, and this could very well be the case, that Bichette is a good enough athlete to adjust and become an effective third baseman, even with the concerns about his arm that people have had. So I don't know. All this to say that I think you can find enough flaws in what the Mets have done, despite as impressive and as deep as they've made themselves, you can find enough flaws in what they've done to not make the answer to your question be like an aggressive yes. Like it's not an instant like, oh yeah, that team's way better than this team. They both have questions to answer, and a lot of them are just going to get answered when people start playing baseball.
Like if you ask me, obviously, if you're switching the Dodgers roster with the Phillies roster, I'm saying yes. And I'd probably say yes if it's the Braves roster. But I will say this, what the Phillies roster has going for it is the consistency that it's displayed every season since 2022. They've won more games in the regular season every year since 2022. This group has shown that they can get through a 162-game schedule and play very well during those 162 games and win enough games to win 2 straight division titles. And with the Mets, it's a different roster. It's certainly shaken things up. They appear to be more talented than a year ago, but we've never seen this roster play together. So it's riskier. Like if you were going to swap the rosters, I think you're feeling probably more secure with a higher floor for the Phillies roster, although I do think that floor is a little lower this year than it has been in previous seasons. But I think the floor with the Mets roster is lower than the Phillies. And so it just kind of depends on, like, do you feel better taking some risk there, or do you feel better knowing that this Phillies team is probably going to win a minimum of 88 games, if not 90 games, and certainly will be competing for a wild card. And the Mets, you don't really know. They could win 100 games with this roster. They could also win like 74 games with this roster. It's kind of all over the place. And so I'm probably, as much as I have not enjoyed this team coming back almost in its exact same form here in 2026, I'm probably sticking with the Phillies roster over swapping it with the Mets roster.
Until proven otherwise is going to be a great name for the 2026 video yearbook, because that is the phrase I keep coming back to.
Yes.
The Phillies have a good back of the bullpen. They should have a better, more consistent offense. But, when are you not catching yourself saying that? And, like, what is consistency? But that's for a July episode when we're really getting into the weeds. They have young players ready to step into the roles they have open. And again, I don't want to make every conversation about this, but right now it really a lot falls out of the Bichette fiasco. And I'm not going to bring it, I'm not going to drag us through it or anything, but it does define the offseason.
Yes, it does.
Now, at any point when the Phillies say, we like our guys and we're content with our team, you can say, no, you're not. No, you're not, because you tried to change it up. We all saw, and it fell out from, like, the floor fell out from under you, and now you got this team, and this team can win. And I believe that, like, you're good with this team. But now there's just kind of like this weird context around it. But again, they face planted in free agency. Every core is aging, but this one didn't really adjust. And that's I think, in general, the shorthand for what we're frustrated with this team. And the rotation is very much a question. But, like, they have they have pluses and minuses, just like the other two teams we were just talking about. And there's enough candidates to potentially play significantly better than they did last year. And more importantly, I like that we're getting into it with the young guys. I know that might not have been the plan, and it kind of was the plan last year. Then they pulled off of it, and then some other stuff happened. The injury to Crawford, Painters stumbling in AAA. None of it's so none of it's so bad that you can't still imagine these guys as being a part of the future. And the Phillies, even if this is, technically plan B or whatever or Bichette was plan B and this was always plan A, regardless of how this was going to go down. Charlotte Varnes wrote about Justin Crawford and his work, it just playing his position as an outfielder, in the Athletic. And, I wouldn't say that it got me ready to run through a wall or anything, but it's pretty much telling you that all the stuff that you've heard that he struggles with, especially defensively as a center fielder, the things everybody's going to be harping on when he's playing center field on opening day, presumably, his positioning, his first steps when the ball's coming off the bat, the angles he's taking, all of that stuff is what they're working on. They're hammering that speed is something that you use. It's not something you rely on, which is something he's been dinged on about a lot, where he's trying to cover poor routes by just using his elite speed. They're cutting down on the number of steps he takes. They're improving his angling in the likely direction that the ball is going to be hit for each batter, and they're working on him turning his hips as he moves, so again he can get that extra step, and they're just drilling, and he's working with Eric Davis, who has floated around the major leagues. He's I believe all-star and Gold Glove center fielder. He's floated around the major leagues. I know he was a special assistant with the Mets or with the Reds at one point. I looked into a little bit, and he worked with Nick Senzel in 2022, if you remember him. He was like this great, considered a sort of Ben Zobrist super utility type coming up, who was supposed to be really good. I mean, it's 3-4 years of just injury ravaged seasons. This guy just couldn't stay on the field, but he was working with Davis at one point. As a super utility guy, the idea was he was going to be able to acquiesce to whatever position they wanted, but this was they used Davis to try and, transition him into center field. And it went really well. And he was a good defensive player and an asset. And, it's not that you doubt that Davis is having a good impact on Crawford. I was just kind of curious what his track record was. And that was an interesting case where it was this was a guy who the numbers wound up not being there, but mostly because he just couldn't stay on the field. If Justin Crawford can stay healthy, Eric Davis and having access to him and the outfield boot camp, they called it, are among the things that I was talking about last week, where the Phillies are going to give Justin Crawford everything he needs to succeed, given the importance of his role moving forward. And this is one of those things. This is a good resource. So again, it's nothing that the Phillies shouldn't be doing for this kid and that he shouldn't be doing as he prepares for this new phase of his career, but it's just, they're doing it. They're doing it, and they're investing in Justin Crawford, and I think that could potentially be a very good positive for this team, and it's something to be excited about for this season.
The Justin Crawford situation with the Phillies in 2026 is really interesting. For a kid who is one of their top prospects, he's been one of their top prospects for a while. All the numbers in the minors are great. He's done nothing but hit at every level. But yet, I think most people, and I think there's a part of me that I would have to include myself in this, are pessimistic about him being having a positive impact at the major league level this year. Now, a part of that
is... You read that Baseball America article and just got totally bummed out a couple of months ago. Well, guess what? Baseball America just hired that guy from the Braves to write a regular feature column who got banned from baseball for a little while. So I don't know, just if that does anything for you, just keep that in mind.
Well, I mean, it's everybody talking about, we know so much about these prospects now, and the ground ball rate and the defensive metrics like you're talking about. What we have really heard most about Justin Crawford are all the things that he can't do, or the things that he doesn't do well, or the things that might not translate in the majors. And those things, that's why I think there's a lot of pessimism about the outfield. And I feel some of that myself, is because Justin Crawford, no one's talking him up that he's going to be an all-star caliber player. I mean, and yet, that certainly is a possibility for him. It's not going to happen in 2026, and that's okay. It might not happen for a couple of seasons with Justin Crawford, if it happens at all. But I mean, I think it's just interesting. I agree with you. We should be excited about this young position player who's a former first-round pick. He's done nothing but play well at the minor league level, and there is more pessimism. Would Would you agree with me that there's more pessimism than optimism about Justin Crawford playing center field for the Phillies this year?
Yeah, and that's why I've tried to end a couple of shows by pointing out, I'm not trying to be the overly positive guy, but I'm trying to just weigh the scales a little bit. The other side, just reminding people, hey, remember, this guy has performed extremely well at every new level that the Phillies have put him on. He is a great young ball player getting his chance, and what I really want, and I think this is totally realistic, is for Crawford to come out like on opening day. Let's assume he is the center fielder on opening day. Come out and like just have one play that day where he runs down a ball in the gap, and it's like a great play, and it's just they play that music, and he just runs it down. And it's fine.
Yeah.
And then like he also hits like a line drive, or a fly ball that day. And then, after that, he can go through whatever typical rookie, new guy struggles that he's going to go through and make his adjustments and ultimately prove, whether or not he belongs here. But like that first day, just do those two things that are so how people have come to define him. That he can't hit anything but grounders, and that he takes terrible routes on fly balls. Just like do that. Prove those two things wrong in like even just one play instances, and just get people off on the right foot, just to show them that like, yes, I can do this. I'm gonna, it might take a little bit, but I can do this.
Let us get a little taste of the glimpse of it. Yeah. Well, let's transition then, and let's do these rather quickly. Some over-unders based on the Zips projections for some of the Phillies individual players. And I'll throw Justin Crawford out there first. Zips is projecting, and I was kind of surprised. It seems a little bit higher than I was expecting. A 727 OPS for Justin Crawford here in 2026, Justin. Do you think, is that over or under 727 for you for Justin Crawford here in 26?
Jeez, you're right. That does feel
feels
kind of generous. And even after what I just said, I feel like I have to say over, but I think the realistic approach is it's to say under, I think.
Yeah.
I could put him between 700 and 727. Like put him in that window, and that's still encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, if he plays if his defense is better, I mean, then I think, even if you get like a 690 OPS, it's not great, but in the 9-hole playing good defense, you'll still be a 2 to a 2.5 win player. In that case. So I'm on the under there as well. I thought that was an optimistic look at Justin Crawford and his offensive output this year. Trey Turner, 285 batting average. I'm going to say he won the batting title last year, but he only hit, it was 304 average, which, I mean, back in the day, that would have been like good for like 12th place, like in the 1980s. But that's when baseball was at its zenith, of course.
Oh yeah.
Knows,
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'll say,
so everyone knows, if you want to listen to a podcast from the 1980s, you can go ahead and do that. That's the Jhoan Stolnis method.
I might have to do a podcast where I relive 1 week from every season in the 1980s at some point and just go through it year by year. And Eric Davis will be mentioned prominently in one of those seasons. For sure.
We got a nice work stoppage coming up. You're going to have to fill the hours somehow.
We'll have to fill the hours somehow. I'm going to say under on a 285 batting average for Trey Turner, Justin. That's in his first 2 seasons in Philadelphia. I don't think he was over 285, so I'm going to say under.
I'll say over. I think these are the kind of things that have to go right, and they could. Maybe not a 300 season, but I think that's a healthy place for him to land, batting average wise. Is over. It's totally possible.
Yep. Okay. Bryce Harper, 3.1 wins above replacement. I'll say I don't think that's a good enough number. I think he needs to have. That's not enough impact for me for this year. So I guess this is a way of saying, do you think Bryce Harper has more impact than he had a year ago?
Yeah, according to Baseball Reference, 3.1 is exactly the amount of wins above replacement he had last year. So, yes, I'd say that number has to be higher for the Phillies to be doing as well as we need them to be. Like somewhere closer to 2024, an all-star season where he was just like a little under 5 wins above replacement. Like that's a place I can live with, and that's where he's kind of got to be.
Yep, I agree. And I think he will be over 3.1 WAR this year. Bryson Stott, a 98 weighted runs created. For those who aren't familiar with Fangraph's weighted runs created, it just it weights the different batted ball outcomes. It tries to strip away luck. It factors in the position a player is playing, and that is essentially saying that Bryson Stott would be 2% below the league average player in terms of offense. So they're basically calling for a league average offensive season, slightly below league average offensive season for Bryson Stott with a 98 weighted runs created plus. I'll say that he'll be slightly over that. I don't think it's going to be by a significant margin. I think he's probably going to be in the 104 to 105 range, which isn't great, but I think that's kind of where he is. What do you think?
Well, I want to be careful I don't project everyone to play exactly as they did last year, because that's often a trap in these in these future guessing scenarios. But in the case of Bryson Stott, I already kind of fired all my shots here last year and the year before, saying that way over. I think the phrase, what did you say, slightly below average.
Oh yeah, slightly
offensive output is going to be the name of the group Bryson Stott will be in. Whether or not it's this exact number of weighted runs created, I mean, maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less, but this is the ballpark he'll be playing in.
So over under? Do you want to?
I'll say over, but not so much that he's not out of that group.
Yeah, gotcha. Kyle Schwarber, 43 home runs. Of course, I don't think it's reasonable to expect him to get to the 56 that he got to last year. And 43 would be more in line with what he's done throughout his career, Justin. Over under 43 home runs for Kyle Schwarber.
Under, but still over 40.
Okay, I'll say over. I'll say he gets to 45. So I'll say it goes a little bit over 43. JT Realmuto, 122 games played. So again, that essentially means he doesn't play in 40 games this year for the Phillies, which again is an aging catcher who you just gave what is it, $15 million a year? No, what is he making now? Is it 15? 3 for 45? Is that what they gave him? I think that's right. Yeah, 3 for 45. So $15 million a year. Yeah, I guess you want him to play that many games. What do you think? Over or under 122 games?
I gotta say, under 122 games. History is just not on his side, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll go with the under as well. I think it'll be in the hundreds, obviously, but more like 110, something like that would be my guess.
110 was the number that popped into my head as soon as you said that.
For great minds and all those different things, nerds of a feather. Alec Bohm.
Nailed both of those sayings. Those are well done.
That's why people come here.
Mm-hmm.
Alec Bohm, 27 doubles. We remember, Justin, a couple of seasons ago, he was in the 40s, I think, in terms of doubles. His career season when he started the All-Star game in 2024. Last year, obviously, slipped quite a bit and missed some time due to injury. I'm gonna say under 27 doubles for Alec Bohm this year.
Yeah, I'm also going to say under.
That doesn't portend well for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let me
I don't want to be negative just because we kind of thought he was on his way out, but
what I'd like to believe is that 2024 is certainly the ceiling. And last year, he actually finished with a higher batting average, right around the same on base percentage as his All-Star season. But numbers like doubles, yeah, he was way down in doubles last year, especially compared to 2024. I don't know if you even see just a sort of default sort of bounce back for him in this department. I could see him hitting more than 27, but again, not much more. If you're capping to 30 doubles. The 2 years before 2024, when he was I'm an offensive contributor, I'm a solid bat lower in the lineup who knocks and runs and hits doubles, he was hitting 25, 30 doubles a season. Being back in that ballpark is possible, over 27, but not more than 30.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last offensive player I'm going to mention here, Adolis Garcia. They have it 25 home runs for the Phillies. Guess so.
I'm going to say over. I'm going to say over because, again, one of these guys is going to work, right?
They got to find some power somewhere. I don't know where the power is coming from other than Kyle Schwarber on this team. Yeah.
Even if all he does is hit home runs and he winds up with a ton of home runs, but his other numbers aren't great. Fine. That's what they were missing. So, and again, he's supposed to be a significantly better defender than Castellanos. So
I'll go with over as well. I'll say that he approaches 30. Why not? Let's feel good about something for a change. Let me ask you about a couple of the pitchers here. Christopher Sanchez, they have it 178 in the third innings. He pitched over 200 innings a season ago, so this is calling for a lighter workload, or maybe he misses for 3 or 4 starts or something like this. I mean, he was remarkably durable, but you always do, and this is going to hold true to the next guy too, Jesus Luzardo, but a jump in innings for these guys. It wasn't such a big jump for Sanchez as it was for Luzardo, but I'm going to say I think he's over 178 in the third innings this year, Justin.
Yeah, and that's not absurd for him. You mentioned the 200 innings, 202 innings last year. 78 and change is closer to where he was in 2024 when he was an all-star. I mean, like you said, this is not an insurmountable or unfamiliar number of innings for him to pitch. And yeah, even factoring in a couple of missed starts here and there, I think you can still say over and not overwork his arm.
Jesus Luzardo, a 3.99 ERA. That's close to where he was at last year. But again, that ERA got ballooned because of those 2 horrific starts where he was tipping his pitches. You take away those 2 starts, he would have an ERA in the low 3s. So for Jesus Luzardo, Justin, over or under a 3.99 ERA?
Under. This is another case where it's just kind of gotta happen. Like the Sanchez and Luzardo, I think, are going to have some more pressure put on them this year to really step up. Again, a lot of question marks right now, and maybe fewer later, and who knows what the timetable is like, and all that stuff still applies. But right now, you're going into the season, and you're just like, who don't we have like a bunch of question marks about? And it's those 2 guys, and they've proven how well they can pitch before in the past. And I think there should be no problem for Luzardo to pitch better. Pitch a very similar season to last year, and just don't include those 2 games where everything exploded.
Quick prediction: do they sign Jesus Luzardo to a contract extension before the end of spring training?
For the end of spring training,
yeah.
Yeah,
I
agree. Yeah,
I think they do too. I think they want to get that done, especially with uncertainty over Wheeler and Nola, who we're going to talk about next. I think
they want to regain control. Yeah. I think they want to. Yeah. They want to. It's like when you can't. Something else is going wrong, so you go home and clean your basement. You just like to get control. Yeah. So I will say, signing Jesus Luzardo way better than cleaning your basement.
True enough, and we will celebrate that when it happens for sure. They have Zach Wheeler at 21 starts, Justin, and I'm going to go with the over on this. It sounds as though they are optimistic that he could be ready to go by opening day. That's what everything, all the reports we're hearing is that, he's going to start behind the other pitchers, but it doesn't sound like he's going to start too far behind. So at the very worst, I mean, it's sounding like, middle of April, but it could be even sooner than that. And if it is, then he's going to sail over the 21 starts. Cause I think, I think I'm encouraged by what we're hearing. You hope the effectiveness is close to what it was before the thoracic outlet syndrome, but I think 21 starts, I think that's low. I think he goes over. What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of torn, on the one hand, 21 starts is such a low number. And, with the question of the playoffs last year being, can you imagine this team, but with Zach Wheeler and what the difference could have been there? And he still made 24 starts last year. So 21 is unarguably low. On the other hand, I'm trying to give this such an emotional cushion, Wheeler specifically. It's kind of like easy to have dark thoughts about some of these what if scenarios coming into 2026, and I think a lot of that stems from the crappy moods a lot of people got put in a couple of weeks ago. But with Wheeler specifically, and having known this was going to be the case all off season long, I've just tried to provide myself with enough space from this to not like, he's doing better. Opening day, totally possible. When they say that, do they mean opening day starter Zach Wheeler is like on the table, or that he's just available on opening day? I don't know. The point is, I'm going to say under, not because obviously his return is going to be important to this team, huge, and it's because of that level of importance that I am saying things like under 21 games, because I gotta give this particular injury case all the cushion in the world. Come back healthy. The last thing anybody needs is a Zach Wheeler rushing things back, pitching through discomfort. Then he goes away again, continuing to like have question marks pop up. So again, emotional cushion. Under 21 games. I hope it's more, but that's what I got to do.
All right. I hear what you're saying. And I think if they need to push it, then I'm fine with that too. Right. I'm not like saying that he's got to be ready by opening day. I'd love it. It'd be great if he is, but you're right. I think play it safe. If he needs time, there's a setback in spring. And that's something else too. Like he may have a setback in spring training, like, oh, he got a dead arm, it's just working your way back. Okay, we're gonna just kind of push it back a couple of weeks. That wouldn't be great news. It would certainly little ominous cloud over Zach Wheeler's 26th season, but I think they need to be overly cautious. And I agree with you. I want him to be effective when he comes back. And so,
yeah,
if we get 18 to 20 really effective starts from Zach Wheeler from the time he comes back till the end of the season, I'd rather have that
exactly
than have him rushed for opening day.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And if Zach Wheeler, if it takes a little longer and you find yourself with a shortage of starting pitching, well, I mean, guess what, Phillies? That's a lack of planning on your part.
That's right.
If you decided that wasn't an issue you needed to address and it becomes one, people are going to notice.
Yeah. You're going to get Taijuan Walkered, and that's how it's going to be until Zach Wheeler comes back. And, Taijuan Walker did good things for the Phillies last year. I'm not counting on it again. They have Aaron Nola with a 4.25 ERA, Justin. This is, so the question is Aaron Nola cooked or not? And that's really the way to phrase this, to phrase this number, because he's got so many years left on this contract. If he's cooked, it's going to be like Steven Strasburg levels of awfulness with this contract. And I almost can't bring myself to believe that Aaron Nola is fully cooked at this point. So I'm going to say, just for my own sanity, that the number is going to be under 4.25 for Aaron Nola. I think he'll have an ERA in the threes somewhere here in 2026. I'm going to believe in the even year Aaron Nola weirdness that we've seen over these last few years. I'm going to believe in the bounce back for your boy, Justin, Aaron Nola.
Nope. I can't trust this man. I don't think I've ever trusted a pitcher less than Aaron Nola. It's such a unique thing to know that, like, yeah, every time you might see 7 shutout innings, but then, it feels less and less likely that's what you're going to see. And it doesn't matter if you saw that the last 3 times out, and this is a big game and you got to see the big version of him step up, and then it's not. So I have no trust in Aaron Nola. I can't really go back on that, and I don't really see a need to. So but I again, to your point, this is another situation where you're like, yeah, but if I say this, then something's gone horribly wrong, and not this team can afford maybe 2 horribly wrong things at most with the season not being over way too early. So what I'm going to say is still over 4, but under 4.25. He finished last year with an ERA over 6. He's got some space to come down, still be as annoyingly ineffective as he is, and have an ERA under 4.25. That, I think, is totally possible.
All true words. Couple others, 2 more. Andrew Painter, they have with an ERA of 4.80. And I know where that's coming from. It's coming from a really bad AAA season last year where he was recovering from Tommy John surgery. It's funny, too. We're talking about Justin Crawford, kind of a lot of pessimism around him. Man, the bloom is off the rose with Andrew Painter. There was no more a pitching prospect in Phillies history that people were as excited about as Andrew Painter. As much as Dave Dombrowski in the front office was talking him up 2 years ago, I think it was, but before the Tommy John came up in spring training, I mean, he was going to be a part of that rotation at, like, what was it, 21 years old or 20 years old or something like that, and he was going to dominate as a 20-year-old rookie. And now, last year, he has his struggles in AAA, and people are not expecting anything. They're not expecting anything. And maybe that's a great way for him to enter the season. I saw that the latest odds for National League Rookie of the Year do not have him anywhere near the top 5, which I thought was very interesting. That just in baseball, it seems like people are soured on Andrew Painter. So the 4.80 ERA certainly takes into account what happened in AAA last year. And then obviously coming up to the majors, it's going to be difficult. I think he's going to be under that. I really do. I think he's going to be low 4s, maybe, but maybe even in the 3s, because I don't think the stuff went away. The command was an issue last year, but the stuff is still elite level stuff. And so I know that I think we're just pessimistic about all the Phillies prospects right now. And Andrew Painter is getting sucked into that. And I get it. He didn't have a good year last year, but I think he comes in under 4.8.
Yeah, I'm glad you got there. I was worried where that was going, but I'm glad you got there. That we're both going to say yes. I think Andrew Painter, despite everything, will still be capable of having an ERA under 4.80. I mean, look, there's a lot of this that it's the kind of the same philosophy as when it comes to prospects as like people who leave comments about restaurants online, where you're only really leaving one if you had the best possible time or the worst possible time. And there really is not a lot of if prospects are being talked about as prominently as these guys are among Phillies circles, then there's people who are going to say this guy's the best guy ever, and now like something has happened and he doesn't look as good, and now he's out, he's done. This was a waste, another blown chance for the Phillies. But yeah, I mean, all you heard last year during Painter's struggles were that like I don't think anybody was worried about the stuff, the natural ability. It was look, he's doing he's running into a level of pitching that he or a level of hitting that he hasn't experienced before. He is pitching to a lot of guys who have faced major league pitching regularly. That's a different level of pitching that every pitcher has had to adjust for at AAA. And Andrew Painter, had just blasted through so many levels of minor league ball that getting up here and facing that level of hitting while also recovering from Tommy John surgery led to, guess what? Less than the chosen one levels of pitching. It's a completely natural sequence of events, and it does not by any means suggest that he has dropped off beyond the point of effectiveness. I mean, go back to Baseball America Now, which was the outlet that was gushing so much over him like last year when I was reading you those scouting reports where they were saying like these were objective non-Phillies related people saying like this guy's the best guy we've seen since like Jose Fernandez or Garrett Cole were the names that were getting thrown out there. And they're still saying that like he's retained his premium velocity. That is one of his biggest attributes and the things that make him such a skilled young pitcher. And like the adjustments they've made and the movements he's made and the backslide to his arm slot that started appearing as the season was going on last year, like all these things that they noticed, that they had him adjust, that the level of hitting he was facing, they had him adjust to that as well. I mean, like we'll see what the results of this are going to be. But ultimately, you saw Andrew Painter run into a very normal obstacle in a player's development. And it was happening to do it at a time when he was also coming back from the biggest injury that pitchers of that age are going to face and have to come back from. I think Andrew Painter wound up having a very normal year with all those factors in place. And I think that still leaves room for him to struggle as a major leaguer for the first time, but this team's got a lot of plans around him. I think he can play a huge role. And yeah, I think 4.80 is too high of an ERA for him, even after last year and even being a rookie.
Agreed. And last pitcher, Jhoan Duran, 29 saves. Justin, over or under 29 saves for Duran?
I'll say over. I think he's going to be a saves machine.
Yep, 40 plus saves for Duran. He's not competing with anyone. He's the guy. He's the guy.
Brad Keller, Jose Alvarado, and Jhoan Duran are going to be a terrific back of the bullpen for the Phillies.
Yeah. And, I think the kid that they got from Boston for Matt Strom, too.
Jonathan Bolin.
Yeah, Bolin, thank you.
From Kansas City.
What did I say?
Boston.
I said Boston. Yeah, sorry. He was in Boston before, and the Phillies signed him out when he was from the Red Sox, and they traded him. There you go.
Yeah, that H in his name was an R, but until he went to Boston.
That's right.
And
then
it just got. Yeah, they said it so many times that it was actually changed officially to an H.
That makes sense. All right, finishing up with a couple of bits of news from around Major League Baseball in terms of signing the last couple of days. Eugenio Suarez signed a contract with the Reds. He's the power-hitting third baseman who started the season with the Diamondbacks and finished up with the Mariners a season ago. 1 year, $15 million contract for Eugenio Suarez. Major League MLB Trade Rumors projected him for a 3-year, $63 million contract at the start of the offseason. So Suarez was a big power guy, 49 homers a year ago. Overall hit 228 though, with a 298 on base, but then somehow a 526 slugging percentage, despite hitting just 228 with a 298 on base percentage. So really it was like homer or strikeout. He even had a below average walk rate for the second year in a row. So, I mean, not even a guy who drew his walks. So I get it. And, his defensive output, -6 defensive runs saved last year, -3 outs above average. I just ask, with Alec Bohm earning $10 million this year, Suarez is going to get $5 million more. They're both on 1-year deals. Bohm was -3 defensive runs saved a season ago and -2 outs above average defensively. And then, of course, the offensive numbers, Bohm is better with batting average, better with on base, but way behind Suarez in terms of power at third base. So I don't know, Justin, thoughts on the fact that Suarez went for 1 year and $15 million with the Cincinnati Reds, his former team. He's gone back home to Cincinnati.
I'll tell you what would have been interesting if Suarez had been the answer for the power bat, and then you tried to do something else with Garcia. Like Garcia deal never happens, then maybe Bader is the guy you go after for the outfield instead, and that's your answer to that. That is probably a better team, and I think that again, going back to this idea of change that people wanted to see, but it would be the kind of change people would want to see, where you're saying like, yes, he's a different kind of player at third base, and he's going to be good at things that Bohm wasn't, and probably not as good at some things Bohm was able to do, but it's just a different kind of, he profiles differently, and what Suarez is there to do. He's there to hit home runs and be another power bat with Kyle Schwarber, and that would have been very cool. You can't even throw like the different outfield situation in there because who knows what would have happened. So, but even if you're just talking about swapping out Bohm for Suarez, I mean, yeah, I would have probably been into that for sure. I think the Phillies, they kind of, I don't know if this is the deal, but it just sort of starts to feel like they're just Rip Van Winkle waking up with a long beard and being like, wait, these players are all taking like these short little deals. Like when did this happen? And then like there's all these quick little short-term deals are flashing by their heads as they're waking up after snoozing against a tree.
It feels like the Phillies decided long ago they were done, with the exception of Bichette. Bichette seemed like the special exception, but it just kind of feels like there was no wiggle room at all for like any of these like these kinds of deals where you could take advantage of the market. I mean, this is just so far below what anybody thought he was gonna get that, I mean, I guess it's too late in the offseason to trade Bohm. So not having that existing third base spot, I guess, but I mean, I don't, man, it just feels lazy. It really does. It just feels like, just bring everybody back. Let's try it again. And that's fine, to a degree, but this was these last, the Bader deal and the Suarez deal, they were cheaper. They were less expensive on the market than anybody was expecting. And
on paper, everything we've been talking about is totally reasonable, that like, yeah, this team, things could work and people could play better and they could be really good. But, the biggest vibe, the biggest vibes boost that Phillies fans have gotten since the Bichette thing went down was like Ben Davis being like, the Mets have loser energy. And everyone just got mad about it because they were like, well, great. Yeah, let them get mad that you said that and act like you're a representative of all of this. And yeah, so like that, there's still that lingering. That's just lingering in the air.
It's not exactly Jimmy Rollins, we're the team to beat.
No. Somebody's got it. Like, come on, Bryce, you're supposed to be good at that, right? Showing up at spring training and being like, I'm gonna make a baseball explode this season. I'm gonna be the first player to do that. Like, just make an absolute statement of some kind like that, and like give us a daily news headline to just run with all spring.
Yeah.
That would do wonders for people. I got all new blood. Great, man. Let's roll with that.
It's a whole different color. The blood the rainbow blood.
I've upgraded to blood too.
That's right. It's thicker than normal blood. That's okay, right? That's too much. And then one last thing before we wrap up here. David Robertson, Justin, announced his retirement this week. So what's the over-under of when he signs with the Phillies for a fourth time this year, bud? David Robertson.
Yeah, I mean, no thanks.
Seems like a great guy. I mean, he seems like but...
Oh, yeah.
Man,
he came here the first time. They started using him in, like, media materials, like, right off the bat. He was, like, high-fiving with he was doing, like, a special handshake with the Fanatic at one point. Like, yeah, he was great vibes going off the guy. Just, how... I don't know if it would be the best way to prove that you're not an old president of baseball ops who's running out of moves. If you like, well, I guess I have David Robertson, sort of like he's thumbing through a Rolodex at the trade deadline, and like all the names are just crossed off and say retired except for David Robertson's, and he's like, I can't possibly. They're not gonna like, but maybe.
I mean, fourth time's a charm. That's how it goes. I mean, he had some good moments for the Phillies, but it was just so funny. And even in the playoffs last year, man, they ran away from him in the playoffs. They wanted he was not going to get in a game in any meaningful spot in the 2025.
Enjoy your retirement. You know, that's going to be
happy
great.
trails.
Man. Yeah, happy trails.
All right, let's finish up here with some final thoughts. Justin, you got anything final for us? Man, book release date is almost here, isn't it?
Yeah, book release this month, Summer of the Cheap Wieners. You'll I believe you can catch me on, and I'll keep people up to date on this, but you catch me on a couple of other shows talking about the book and everything. I just did a segment for a podcast called Hooks and Runs. That's a baseball and history and music podcast. So I actually talked a very little bit, but I did talk about music, and I was interesting to be like, oh, I'm on a podcast talking about something other than the Phillies. This is apparently you can do that. So that was a fun experience. Yeah. Like Craig Estenblom and his podcast Hooks and Runs. So seek that out. I appeared on a recent episode of that talking about Summer of the Cheap Wieners. But yeah, if you like baseball, but also baseball history, but also a good narrative, a good story that is told humorously with the right amount of respect, but also dunking on the team that lost 111 games. This is a great book for you. I've been saying, like, hey, if you want a great book for your dad, go ahead and pick it up. But it really is a book intended to make something as what some people might call eye-rolling a topic as baseball history palatable for more than just people who sit in easy chairs and fall asleep in sunbeams. This is a book that I want everyone to be able to enjoy, and I believe it was written that way. So even if you're just buying it to support me, which I know some people are, I do hope eventually you read it and find out, oh, you know what? This book was for me after all. I think it has a wider reach than perhaps maybe it is assumed. But Summer of the Cheap Wieners out this month. Had a lot of fun writing it. Trying to work on a follow-up project right now that's also a lot of fun. So please buy my book, Summer of the Cheap Wieners, and I'd happily sign a copy for you should I run into you in the wild or at live WHYY events in the season to come.
And Brookline.com is where you can go. You can get a copy of that, right? It's Brookline.
Yes, you can buy it through the publisher. It's available elsewhere, but yeah, BrooklineBooks.com. You can pre-order or order a copy of it now.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Do it as soon as you're done listening to this podcast. BrooklineBooks.com. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. I want to remind you all that this podcast, if you're listening to us on one of your favorite podcast apps, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you want to watch the show, you can watch every one of our roundtable shows on the WHYY YouTube page. Lots of great stuff on the WHYY YouTube page. They got Studio 2 stuff there. They got some other shows, some other features, vignettes and stuff. So subscribe to the WHYY YouTube page, and then you'll get every roundtable episode of Hittin' Season as well. And of course, tell your friends and family members about Hittin' Season as we get ready for Phillies spring training. Baseball almost here, just a couple weeks away, 10 days away, as you heard Justin say in the beginning of the podcast. So it's right around the corner. We got the World Baseball Classic coming up in March and too. So baseball's going to be back, and it's going to be fun before you know it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.